All right, in this video, we're going to cover the process of building a system within the Reinvent system using the hosted PBX import spreadsheet. And this is going to be for just call it a base system, no custom programming. This is going to be what we do initially before we go out to a customer site to actually do the installation and complete the custom programming. So what we're going to need before we move on is we're going to need some information both from the RPP portal, the order information, and we're also going to need a list of the MAC addresses for all the phones uh, on the order. So I do have the MAC addresses here in this little spreadsheet, so we will refer back to this here in a little bit. And I also have my RPP open here. What I can do to get the information on the order, once you get logged in, we'll come to the orders tab. This will also be the first page that shows whenever you log in initially. And we're going to just simply open up the order that we need to build for the customer. So I'm working with North Lafourche Levy District here, so I'll just click on my order ID here, bring up the order information, and here is kind of the breakdown of what we'll need to configure here. So it gives us a breakdown of all of the different services available on the order and all the internal routing phone numbers, as well as the phone numbers associated with the IP lines and the virtual telephone number. So we'll touch on those here in a little bit. So what we'll be doing is working in the hosted PBX import spreadsheet. Get with Chad if you don't have this, and he'll send this to you. And this is what you can use to create your systems from here on. So we'll go ahead and open this. And this is a special spreadsheet. It's not your typical Excel file. It's got some programming in the background that you will need to activate macros. And you'll notice at the top of my screen here, it has this security warning. It says some content has been blocked. You do want to go ahead and enable this content. So go ahead and click this button. And what will happen is pop up this little window and it asks you what the customer name is. So best thing to do is just simply come into your RPP order and copy and paste the customer account name. So we'll come back in here, paste that in here. And what that will do is it'll put the customer name and format the different fields throughout the spreadsheet with the correct information. So this spreadsheet is really designed to kind of make things, I don't want to call them dummy proof, but it makes it difficult to put something in here that's not correct. So what we'll do is just simply start at the top of this import spreadsheet and work our way down. So the business group information, pretty much this is going to be standard stuff. We shouldn't need to make any changes on here. The only changes you might need to make is with this field right here. This is the orbit code range. If we can't use 701 to 710 for the park orbits, we would need to change that. But for the most part, this is going to remain the same. The next thing that you would need to do is work in your departments, especially if you have a customer that has multiple departments within one location or possibly more than one location and they are all under the same system. We can separate those into different departments and kind of work with them separately in programming to where changes in one department don't affect another. So to add a department, you click on the Add New button and it drops a row down here to where you can make your changes. So the first three, we won't make any changes to those because those are going to be standard things. And we just simply create our name. So let's just make it HQ. If we have another department in here, we'll go ahead and call this department, call it branch. We have the option of including a parent department. And notice if you click on this, it comes up with a pull down. This brings up a list of all of the program departments within the spreadsheet here. So if the branches needs to be under HQ, you simply click HQ and it'll add it in there. So with this particular order, I don't have any departments. So any field that you need to delete something, simply click the delete button. It'll ask you to confirm it. Just say yes, and it gets rid of those rows in the spreadsheet here. Our next section that we're going to be working with is this number blocks. So the number blocks is where we add all of the phone numbers for the account. You can either add a new one for each number block, or we have an option to bulk add. So we can add multiple number blocks here. So what we'll need to do is get the phone numbers from the RPP order here. And what we have is we have essentially 3 blocks here because we have our internal routing numbers. We do have to include those in the number blocks, and these are sequential. Our IP lines are all local telephone numbers, and some appear to be sequential, so they actually have 2 blocks of numbers within here and 1 virtual telephone number. So what I can do is I can have 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks here. So if I come back to my spreadsheet, and if I hit my bulk add number blocks, I want to add 4 number blocks. And it adds those into me here. So what we need to do is add our first phone number. So what I'll do is I'll take my first internal routing number, 480-154-7915. And this phone number needs to be unformatted. So it does not need to have the parentheses, spaces, and dashes and everything that goes with that. So your first phone number is there. Your block size is the number of consecutive phone numbers after and including this first phone number. So for our internal routing numbers, we have 3 sequential numbers. So this block size for this block is going to be 3. Next, for our IP lines, we have this number here. Just going to go ahead and copy and paste that. And I will remove, let's do this, paste there. And I'm going to go ahead and remove my formatting. And now it starts with 7441. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sequential in this block. So my block size here is going to be 6. Our next one starts out 5448. And in this block we have only 3. And finally, our virtual telephone number. And again, we will remove the formatting. And because there's only one number in sequence here, we'll just add 1. Another way that you can do it, it's a little bit more time consuming, is for each phone number, you can have it on its own line with the block size of 1, but doing it this way does save you a little bit of work here. Moving down to the subscriber section, this will be where we add all of our IP lines. Virtual telephone numbers will also be a subscriber. So anything that needs to be an IP line, a virtual telephone number, an easy attendant, premium attendant, anything along those lines would have to go into the subscriber line here. So in this particular order, we've got 9 IP lines and 1 virtual telephone number. So I'm going to go ahead, again, I'm going to use my bulk add subscribers, and I'm going to add 10 subscribers. So at this point, I will simply add my phone numbers within the phone number field here. So I'm going to start with the main telephone number, and we'll just move right on down. All right, we've got those numbers in there, and just to confirm that we have those in the list matching up with the RPP order, everything looks good there. The next thing that we'll want to do is change the template for each service. So this top one here is our main virtual telephone number. If we click on the template, it gives us our pull down, and we have a list of templates to choose from. So in this particular case, with it being a main number, it is going to be a subscriber ICM, stands for Incoming Call Manager. So we'll change that template there. And the template comes default to subscriber standard. So that's just your basic user seat, anything additional added to it. So the other things that we have available to us is easy attendant. So that would be just simply a basic auto attendant with no multi-leveled options, just simply a one-touch options and transfer out, nothing advanced on that. Subscriber virtual, this would be for anything that does not need to have a phone or anything registered to it. If it have a toll-free number or a DID that needs to be pointed somewhere else, that would be considered a virtual subscriber here. Premium attendant is your advanced automated attendant. It gives you multi-leveled options as well as schedules, things like that. Just the more advanced version of the easy attendant. And then the last three are our Accession mobile clients here. So the ACC STD stands for standard. So this is just a basic mobile client that is going to be added to the account. It does not include the SMS texting or anything else along those lines. The ACC SMS adds the texting feature to the service. And the ACC STT stands for speech to text, and it has the SMS texting to go with it, as well as the speech to text translations within the voicemail. So just depending on the level of service for this particular subscriber, make your selection. But in this case, we are going to use a subscriber standard for all of our subscribers here. So we'll just leave it in place as it is here. Next thing we'll do is make a name for everything. Everything does have to have a name associated with it. You notice that we've got two different name fields. It's programmed to where if you put something in the first name field, it'll automatically add it into the second field. And I'm just going to make some generic extensions here just to fill out the names. Again, you have to have something in there, but it doesn't have to be overly descriptive. So another thing to keep in mind is if you have an analog fax line, there is not a template for specific to a fax service. It would just be considered a standard subscriber, and it just simply attaches to an analog adapter as opposed to a digital or an IP telephone here. Moving over to the department section, we don't have departments here. I'll go ahead and actually add one here just to show you what's going to happen. So we'll call it HQ again. So if we come to our department here, we've got our pull down, and it just simply lists out all of the available departments to be able to choose from. Again, we don't have any departments here, so I'm not going to need to add anything here. It is not a required field. Next thing that we'll skip over the business groups here because it automatically puts that information in there for us. We're going to need to add these two calling party numbers. First one is the outgoing caller ID for when they make a regular call. I'm just going to go ahead and add the main telephone number as the calling party number for all of the subscribers here. So no matter who calls out, it's going to show the main number. If you have a situation where they want the DIDs to be output on the outgoing calls, you would just simply leave this field blank. But if you do, all of the phones have to have a calling party number for emergency calls that matches the 911 number on the order. So if we come back to this order here, and we'll see the service 911 address, it is attached to this number, which happens to be their main number. So we want to make sure that all of the phones, all of these subscribers have this main telephone number set to be the 911 telephone number. Next, we'll move over and our business group administration account type. This is where we set our administrator. So we only need to really have one. We have to have at least one on the account. And what I like to do is just attach the main number as the administrator. So again, if we click on this business administration field, it gives us a pull down and we just simply select it as an administrator. If somebody does need to have access to that, it's just a matter of selecting that row for the subscriber and making that one an administrator. If it is blank, they're just a standard user. Finally, force LNP lookup. Force LNP lookup is a way for, if we build our system, anybody that is connected to the Reinvent system, if they dial our telephone numbers, they are going to route to the new service, the Reinvent service. What this will do is if we set this to true, the system will go out to the network and find out where that number actually resides. So if we set the main number to true, it's no matter who calls it, whether they're on the Reinvent system or not, it's going to ring to their existing service. So a good idea is to go ahead and set the main number to true. And that will only apply to numbers that we are porting in. This is not applicable to anything that has brand new telephone numbers. And you can tell that it is a brand new number or a ported telephone number if you come into the RPP order and you see that the telephone number, the source here, is new for all of our subscriber lines, but for the virtual telephone number, it is ported. So anything that is going to be ported, you want to make sure that you set this force LNP lookup to true. So that is our subscribers. We have everything in place. Everything is good to go. Next thing we'll do is add our devices. With this one, we will not be able to use the bulk add devices here because of how we added a feature to export these MAC addresses to a spreadsheet that we can later upload into the Yealink server. But in order to format it correctly, we had to stop using this bulk add devices button. So we do have to manually click the add new button for each phone. So we're going to add 9 of those. 1, 2, 3. How about that? I got it right. So what we'll do is we need to fill in the MAC addresses for this order here. So this is where we'll go back to our spreadsheet or however you have the list of MAC addresses. I'm just going to simply copy and paste those MAC addresses into this order. If you click on this icon or just simply paste it, it's going to add that white background. So I kind of like to keep things nice and pretty and uniform. So if I choose this other option, it says match the destination formatting, and it matches up there. So it looks like I've got one few, and I will check on that in a second. But we don't need a description for it. We are going to assign these to a user, so they'll stay true. And this is where we assign the telephone to a specific user account. So I'm going to take all my user accounts here. I'm just simply going to highlight all of my phone numbers that are associated with users. I'm going to copy those, Control-C, come back down here, right-click, and I'm going to paste values. And when I do that, it simply copies it, leaves everything in a nice green background so we don't lose anything. So looks like we do have one few MAC address here. I'm going to skip over that just so we can continue on with this process. The MAC trusted until is automatically calculated for you, so you don't need to worry about making a change to this field here. So extension range is our next one. I've only got 2 real extension ranges that we need to worry about because we've got actually 3. So I can just go ahead and click on 3. It's not going to do as much good to use our bulk. Our first code, we can make that one 101, which is going to match our extension numbers up here. And our last code, the last one in sequence is 106, and then 107 and 109. And your first directory number is going to be the first telephone number in that sequence. So if you have it to where your numbers are not in sequence, you will have to have a separate line for each telephone number. So your first code and your last code will both match. So it'll be 101 for the first code, 101 for the last code, telephone number that is associated with 101, and straight on down the line. Another thing I like to do is associate a 600 level extension with the IRNs, just to make them easier to work with. So we have our extensions here now, and we're going to move on to our multi-line hunt groups. So we'll click on Add New. Again, we can't bulk add multi-line hunt groups because it's going to ask us to start inputting these phone numbers here. So pops up this dialog box, and I've got my numbers here. At this point, you just simply start adding these numbers in. And if it's only one, we can click Finish, but we want to add another. And what that'll do is it'll add this down here at the bottom, and as we add more, and click Add Another, it's just going to expand this list. So we'll do that real quick. Now on my last phone number here, I'm not going to click Add a Number because if I don't put a number in this phone number field, it's going to scream at me. So my last telephone number, I'm going to click on Finish, and you'll see what happens here. One thing to note is if I make a mistake and I notice my numbers are wrong, I can reset this form to where it'll blank out all the numbers and it'll allow you to re-enter these. Or if you click Cancel, it will bring you back to the main spreadsheet and you can start the process again. So I'm done. So I'm going to click on Finish, and it fills out my field for me. The other thing that we'll need to do at this point is to give it a name, and the MLHG name, because whenever we go down to our pilot number, we're going to need to associate the pilot number with the MLHG name. So now we've got that programmed in there. If we do need to add additional ones here, just simply add new, pops up the dialog, and just continue that for however many multi-line hunt groups you need. So now we'll move on to our pilot DNs here. Click on Add New. Brings us to our row here. Here's where we select our MLHG name. Click on it, gives us a pull down, and it lists all of our MLHGs that we programmed up here. Here's our ring also. We're going to select that. And our phone number is where we program the phone number. More times than not, this will be one of the internal routing numbers that we have up here. So I've got that set here. And that is pretty much all that we will need to do in order to create the import spreadsheet with the system here. So once we have all the information ready to go, we'll come all the way back up to the top of the spreadsheet, and we have our two buttons here to create our import files. First one is to create the CSV import file. This is what we are going to use to upload into the Metaswitch. So click on that. It's going to flash the screen for a little bit. And then the next thing is the Yealink import spreadsheet. This is what we're going to use to upload all the MAC addresses into the Yealink server. So again, we'll click on that. Screen's going to flash for a second. And now if I minimize this, if I look on my desktop, I should have two new files. Here's the hosted PBX spreadsheet for North Lafourche Levy District. And here's the Yealink import spreadsheet with the same name. So these are our two files that we're going to be using to upload into our two systems. And we'll touch on that right here in just 1 second. All right, now that we have our import spreadsheets created and ready to go, we're going to go into each of our systems and we're going to start importing. So for the hosted import spreadsheet, which is all the programming and everything, we're going to come into the meta view and come up to the import report button here, click the little pull down, and we're going to choose import from file. It's going to bring up the file selection dialog box. So simply browse to your desktop or wherever it is on the desktop, find the file that you want to import, click open, and then click OK. And it's going to do a quick check on it, make sure everything looks good, and it's going to say that reading the file succeeded. If it had any errors, it would throw it up here and kind of let you know what those errors would be. And if everything looks good, I notice we've got one phone here that we missed, but we can go ahead and skip that for now. And we're going to go ahead and click Start Import. And at this point, it'll ask you, say, are you sure? Say yes. And it's going to start running through its process here. So now that it's gone through all of the import processes, you can see that everything, for the most part, was successfully done. It's got the green check marks next to it. This one field failed. If you get any failures on an import, just kind of hover over the red X and it pops up a little balloon telling you exactly what the error is and why it wasn't able to import it. For the most part, if we use the spreadsheet and it's filled out our information there, we shouldn't get any errors, but it is possible. So just look and see what the error is. This particular one, we didn't have a MAC address. That's why it came up with the error. So everything is successfully done. So this one has been successfully imported. It is now in the system. So we can close this import request here. Now if we come up into our business groups, come into our list, that was for North Lafourche Levy District. So it's now going to show up in our business group list here. So we'll come into it, and there's a few more things that we have to do in order to program the system as a base system. So the first thing that we're going to do is under the settings tab of the business group, we're going to need to come to the services tab here and then expand the music on hold service section here. So every system has custom music on hold for it. If the class of service is 1, it does not give them the ability to upload custom music on holds. So we need to change this to 0. And that will activate the system to allow them to upload their own personal music on holds to their system. And that's all that you have to do here. The next thing that we'll do is come over to the MLHGs. This is the ring all group that we have created. The only thing that the import spreadsheet could not do is actually log the members into the group. So if we click on the button to open up the hunt group, and we come to the members tab, we'll see that all of the users are logged out. That's what this little red arrow button is. So all you have to do is come to each of the users and log them in. So they're logged in. The next thing that we'll have to do with the hunt group, we'll go ahead and do this while we're in here. Come to the settings tab. And what we're going to do, we have to disable it first to open up the fields that we need to change. We're going to leave the queuing supported and the maximum queue length 16. That's fine. We are going to uncheck the limit queuing time and the hunt on no answer time. And basically what that will do is it will treat the hunt group as it rings in and stacks the calls up, and any kind of forwarding is done on the actual pilot number itself as opposed to the hunt group. So we'll go ahead and apply and be sure to re-enable it. Otherwise, the hunt group is not going to work. Calls aren't going to ring in. And now, if we come to our pilot numbers and open up the pilot number for the hunt group, now we can come to our services section, and any of these call forwarding services for the pilot number should be activated, and we can use these to forward these wherever we need to send them, either, whether it be on a busy, a delay, unavailable, or even unconditional. So that's why we did that and made those changes in the settings of the hunt group there. So now we have our hunt group set up. Now we're going to forward our main line to that hunt group. So we'll come to the lines tab, find the main line in the list, and come to Services. Next, we'll come to the call forwarding unconditional. We'll go ahead and enable that, and we will forward it to the pilot number for the hunt group. I have the extension number 600 set up there. And what this will do is it'll just simply send all calls that go to the main number and forward it to the hunt group extension pilot number. We can set up some custom call routing using the incoming call manager, but that's really going to be for custom programming once we get on site. We're only covering the base setup here. So now what we have to do is set up the phone profiles. And because we're in the main line here, and this main line is set up as administrator, we can now open the COM portal as an administrator. It opens up the administration portal, and here we set up our phone profiles by coming to Phones, and then Manage your phone profiles. If you had different departments or different locations for an account, you would want to select the department. That way you can have different programming for each different department. But we only have one here, so we'll click on Manage Phone Profiles. And right now, the phone profiles are blank. So we need to add our phone profiles. So we come to our Click New Profile button here, and we find the model phone. All of the phones for this particular order are the Yealink 42Ss. So we just simply come here, and we'll click on Edit to bring up the phone profile. And first things first, the line keys, the park buttons, if we expand those, you'll see that the park orbit is set to none. The system can't automatically add those to the phone, so we do want to go ahead and make sure that we add those to those park buttons there. The next thing I like to do is come to the soft keys and make some changes to the soft keys. These are the buttons at the bottom of the screen here. So for key 1, I like to change it from a history and move it to an intercom. Go ahead and make sure we add our label there. And for the second one, take away the directory, and I like to do a multicast paging. It's probably a good idea to go ahead and memorize this IP address and port number, which is 10,000, and label this all page. And this will just allow that soft key to broadcast to all of the phones. This is the default IP address and port number for the paging groups that are assigned to all of the phones. And really, that's all the changes that we should need to make in the phone profile here. So we can click on Save Changes. And we should be ready to go. So we can close our admin COM portal here. And at that point, we should have everything completed as far as creating a base system within the Metaswitch. So now that we have our Metaswitch done, before we can register the phones, we have to upload the MAC addresses of the phones into the Yealink ZTP server. So come to the Yealink ZTP server. If you need help with logging into this, get with Chad or Brett to get the login information for the system. And when we get logged in, what we need to do is come to the device management section here and come up to the top and click on Import. Import's a little bit easier to work with whenever you have quite a few phones to work with. If you only have 2 or 3, it may be easiest just to click on the Add button, and you can click on this little plus icon next to the field here, and it opens up a few more MAC address fields for you to be able to add just a few MAC addresses at a time. But if you got several, we already went ahead and created our import spreadsheet, so we can click the import button here. First thing we do is select the server name. Always want to make sure that we choose HTTPS just for a little added layer of security. And we're going to click the file to upload. And this is where we find our import spreadsheet. We're on the desktop. We do need to change this from this particular file type to all files and find your spreadsheet to upload. Finally, we'll click on upload here and it'll telling me that it's invalid. So this MAC address is invalid. I'm gonna go ahead and fix that while we're in here. So now if we select our file, select our server and click upload, it'll tell you import successfully for 8 items. And if you come back to your device management tab, you should see the number of MAC addresses here right at the top of the list with no IP address. Now we are ready to plug the phones in. They'll check in with the Yealink server. It'll get the files from the Reinvent server and eventually connect into the system. So once those phones are registered, the system is now ready to go and ready to be installed.